Show you ring bending, and we're going to start with a round ring that overlaps. So I will be using a mini grinder, and it has a fiber wheel on one side and a stone wheel on the other side. This is a inexpensive Harbor Freight item. 18-inch bolt cutter. I find that this size works very efficiently for cutting almost every silverware out there. A rubber mallet, a stubby hammer. Then I have a plastic sizing mandrel. I have a steel mandrel. I have a ring mandrel cradle. And then I have a piece of PVC pipe with a cap on the end. I've got a couple of pieces of silverware. I have a measuring template, and this takes the guesswork out of how to measure for size. A Sharpie marker, and this is the style of ring that we will be doing here. And this is your simple overlap ring. And why you would want to do ring style in an overlap is you can vary the size. So it's very easy to resize. And you generally can resize a number of sizes. So currently this ring sits at approximately, I try and get that down as far as it'll go without pushing it too far. I've got enough of an overlap there that I could probably easily get that to a 12. And then we can also shrink it down to probably about a size 7. And then it would still fit comfortably. And we'll talk about sizing here very shortly. I wanted to talk about silverware first. So here's a couple of pieces that have some decorative ends, and they have some open cut work here. And you want to be really careful when you're using silverware that has areas like this, because those are weak areas. And if you press too hard and you try and do your bends too deeply to start with, you're going to find often that you're going to snap off pieces up above the cut work. So I would recommend holding off on pieces like this until you're more comfortable with the bending process, and then we'll discuss later on how to bend pieces that have more decorative ends and that are more susceptible to breakage. So for this ring, I have chosen this piece of silverware here. You can polish prior to bending, you can polish after bending. It's totally up to you. Some people like to have everything polished, put away in bags and ready to go for when they want to make rings. Some people will go ahead and cut them off, and not cut them off at a particular length, but at a longer length because they have a smaller tumbler and they want to put them in the tumbler. And if you've got a 3-pound tumbler, a whole piece isn't going to fit. If you want to get a very large tumbler like the Frankfurt Arsenal, you can put a lot of silverware in there, even full-size pieces. So we're going to start with this piece. I'm going to polish afterwards. So what I'm going to do is explain to you first that we need to flatten this piece out. So I'm going to grab my anvil, and you can use an anvil that's on the back of your 5-inch vise, and that's the size that I recommend. I also have a piece of railroad track here that I use as an anvil, and I'm going to flatten out that curve there. The reason you want that flat is it's going to help you a lot with your measuring. Okay, so if you want to use the ring template, this is something that I custom designed, and we'll do the measuring for you so you know right where to cut it. So let's say we're going to make this ring an 8. So by following the instructions, measure the center, measure to the center of the hole, and mark for the desired size. If you want the ring to overlap, measure up 4 sizes. So we're going to make a ring that we want to be an 8. So we want to measure up 4 sizes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is going to measure at 12. So you're going to put the end of the silverware, put it underneath the template, put the end of the silverware right where the line starts, and it says 12. And then we're going to grab our Sharpie marker, and we're going to mark right there in the center of the hole. Now, we also need to take into consideration the thickness of the silverware, and we have to add the thickness to the length here in order to accommodate properly for the proper ring size. So I have slots down here, 1.5 millimeter to 2.5 millimeter, 3, and so on. You want to find the slot that the silverware fits in. I'm just doing it from the back, so it's easy for you to see rather than doing it this way. I want to find the slot that the silver fits in nicely. Still a little tight right there. So we're going to add 3 millimeters. All right. Every notch here is a millimeter. Every 10 is a centimeter. So you've got 10, 20, 30, 40, on and on centimeters. But each mark is a millimeter. And like I said, we want to add 3 millimeters to the mark that we just made. So let me turn it this way here. And I'm going to add 3 millimeters. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So we're going to add approximately that much to the overall length. And this is where your bolt cutters come in nice and handy. This makes cutting super, super easy. Set your piece on the line, deepest part of the jaw. You're not going to get good cutting out on the edge. You're going to get your power on the inside, the deep part of the cutter. Now, I can lay it down here. I would recommend throwing a towel over it so the pieces don't go flying away. You want to make sure you are wearing your eye protection. So if you do have a piece, it doesn't come off and hit you in the face. So I've got my piece cut there. I'm going to remove it. And now we have our ring shank. In order to make a ring comfortable, when it overlaps, I like to taper that cut edge. It'll sit much flatter and much more comfortable for the wearer if that edge has a taper to it. So I get my anvil back out, and I've got my little stubby hammer with the ball peen end, and I'm going to flatten that tip down. This takes a little bit of practice so you don't hit way up high. So use some old silverware that may be plain or isn't important to you to do your practicing on. Go on the other side as well. And what we're trying to do is not only flatten that end, but we want to give a little bit of a flare to it. So if your silverware is straight, we want to flare that end slightly. And again, that creates a really comfortable fit. And you don't have to worry about, it looking beat up like that. It's going to go up underneath, so you're not going to see that part at all. Now, what we need to do is, now this is very sharp between the fact that we cut it and the fact that we made it flared and flatter there. It's really sharp. So that's where our little mini grinder comes in. We're going to start with the stone side. And we're going to take off the sharpest portion. I want to keep a slight bit of that flare. I don't want that flare to be completely gone, but I do want it nicely rounded. Okay. So just keep working it until you get it nice and smooth and rounded. Then we're going to go over to the fiber wheel side. And that's going to act like a finer grit sandpaper in essence. And that's going to really smooth it off. So there is no more sharpness there at all. Keep in mind that the fiber wheel is abrasive. So if you use the fiber wheel up higher in your patterns, you run the risk of stripping the plating off. So you want to keep just towards that end down there. Okay, the ring shank is all prepared now, other than polishing. So we're going to move over to the bender press, and I'm going to show you how to shape this into an overlap ring. So here we are at the arbor press, and we've got our attachments all set up, and we're ready to form our rings. Now, if you have one of our kits, you will receive a base plate. If you purchase the deluxe kit, you can get a base plate added on as well if you do buy the classic. That is our starter kit. And in order to keep your block from sliding around, you get better at it the longer that you do it, but it's a little frustrating at first because even though this is magnetic, it still can slide. So I recommend taking sanding block or some sandpaper and just scuffing your block up. And that will make things a little bit better for you. You can also add some Velcro to the bottom if you choose to do so. Put your Velcro here, put your Velcro at the bottom of your block, and then you're all set up. So in the blocks here, we have several different sizes. I always recommend when you're making a ring to start with the largest pin in the most shallow channel, and that would be this one right here. And that's going to force you to make a much slighter, I don't know if that's really a word, make your bend not as severe, because if you try and bend too quickly and make your bends too deep to start with, you're going to find that you get kinks in the metal, and once you've got a kink in the metal, it becomes difficult to get it out. So it's best to prevent it to start with so you don't have that issue. So I'm going to line my block up with the channel. The majority of the force that you're going to get is closest to the ram. So bending rings clear out here at the very end only makes it a little more difficult for you. So we want to go in more towards the ram portion, where the ram and the pin come together. So we want to push our block up there. And we're going to start with the cut end. And I'm going to make a little press to start with. Okay, just a little bit of a press to start with. Let me rearrange the camera angle so I can show you this from the overhead view. Okay, we've got just a little bit of a bend there. Now I'm going to pull it back just slightly and give it just another little bend. Okay, pull it back slightly again. Now the tip of the ring shank is going to sit right at the edge right at that top edge where that channel begins. And we're going to give it just a little bit of a press. Okay, going slow and easy. Once you get the idea, once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to form rings very, very quickly. But you want to go slow to start with so you understand the process. So now I'm just making these tiny little tweak bends. And I'm moving my ring shank as I go. Now I'm getting the tip. Okay. And what we're doing is we're creating a candy cane shape on the end. Once you have achieved the candy cane shape, we're going to do the same thing on the opposite end. Okay, you see we've got a nice smooth bend, no kinks. We're going to do the same thing on this end. Again, don't start at the tip. Don't start all the way up here. Don't start bending here. You want to start bending in that meaty area. And all you want to do is just give it a slight press. Move it towards you. Slight press. Move it towards you. Slight press. You'll find that if you try and go too fast and try to press too fast and too deep, things are just going to slip. And that can be very frustrating while that slips. You want to have controlled movements. Okay. You can see where we're going here. Now we're going to start bending towards the tip, towards the decorative end. So more of that decorative end is now on the underside of the pin, sitting into the channel. Okay. And we're going to continue to work on that. Now, we're going to come back again and do another press towards the center. Now we're moving back towards the decorative end, and we're just going to keep doing that until we have created a C shape now. Okay, so you've got candy cane ends on both, candy cane shape on both ends. All right, once you have achieved that shape, we're going to put it back under the pin. Now we're going to give it a slight press in the center. Do not try and close the ring up in one press. And remember, small presses. Now we're just going to rock back and forth. Just back and forth. And we're going to allow the cut end to slide underneath the decorative end. Now you'll be able to see here that things are not straight. My cut end is over further here, so they're not matching. They're not meeting up. The center of the cut end is not matching with the center of the decorative end. And how to fix that, and fix it early, is to tip it either one direction or the other. Depends on which direction you need to go. And what it will do, if you can see that, is to bring it back into line. Okay, fix those little things as you go, because if you leave them, it becomes more difficult to get the final ring shape, especially when you're learning. Okay, then you're going to take it out, you're going to look at it, you're going to see if you have anything that's flat, any flat spots, anything that needs to be tweaked. Until you get a nice round shape. Okay. Once you have gotten that nice round shape that you're looking for, depending on the silverware, sometimes that tip will stick up a little bit, and if you want to wrap that down and make it tighter, you're going to put that underneath the pin. So now you're going to press that tip up against the cut end. Give it a press. And that will help tighten that tip up. Okay. It looks to me like I'm a little oblong here. So I'm going to give it another little press on this side. Kind of shape that up a little bit more. Okay, and that looks really nice. Nice and round. And it feels comfortable. There's nothing scratching, nothing catching there. And that's a great, great looking ring. Nice and round. So let's talk about sizing. So we wanted to make a ring that was a size 8. So let's check and see what we got. And we have a size 8. Let's say, for example, that it isn't a size 8. Let's say, for example, that, well, let's change that up. Let's say, oh, we changed our mind. We don't want it to be an 8. We actually want it to be a 9. So let me talk to you about how to make this into a 9. I'm going to take it off of here, and we're going to put it on a steel ring mandrel. The reason I use 2 different mandrels is I find it much easier to size with the plastic mandrel than I do to size with a steel mandrel. I find my measurements are more accurate, I guess is the easiest thing to say. Let's move over, and I'm going to show you how to change sizes. Okay, ring mandrel cradle. This is a block of wood with a V-shaped cutout in it, and what it's going to do is allow you to hold your ring in place while you do any additional forming that you need to do with your rubber mallet. So again, we want to make this into a 9. How do I make this into a 9? It's really super, super easy. I'll show you the PVC pipe, but if you do not have the PVC pipe, it is not a necessity, but I do recommend it. It's so inexpensive to grab a piece of PVC pipe from the hardware store. You can tap it down like this, or if you use the PVC pipe, I'm going to, you're not going to be able to see it, but I'm going to tap on the top of the cap. And what that does is drives it down the mandrel. Okay, it drives it down the mandrel. If you can't get it off of there, just hit it with your rubber mallet. Let's check and see what we did. I know I didn't change a whole lot. It actually didn't change much at all. So let me give that a little bit more strength on my taps. Don't worry about making it too big. It's very easy to size it back down again. Okay. I like to take the narrow end and measure at that area, at the narrow end. It's much easier to see your size than it is to try and, you know, see your size underneath this big large end. Okay, so now we are at a size 9. Let's say, okay, we went too far. Let's say we went too far and we made it too big. Okay, now we've made it too big. Customer needs a 9. And now we've got like a 9.5 here. There are 2 ways that you can make this smaller. One is to go back to the bender press and do your tightening, okay? Do it just like you made the ring, except now you're just going to tighten the ring. You can also, say you're at a show and you need to size a ring on the fly real quick. You can always put it on a steel mandrel, use your ring mandrel cradle. Set it in here. Bring it back. Bring your mandrel back so you have some space. You want to have some space. You're not going to be able to make a ring smaller if it's tied up against the mandrel like that. You want to have some space in there. Okay, I'm turning, I'll hold this up here for you. I'm turning the ring to where I'm going to hit on the top here, and it's going to squeeze that tighter. Turn that a little more. And then I'm going to tap that a little. You're going to check your size again. And we're back at a 9. Okay. Customer wants that ring that you just made, loves it, thinks it's great, wants it at a size 7. Again, easy, easy, easy to do. Back on the ring mandrel, the steel mandrel. We're moving it down, closer down here to the narrow end. And you're going to do that until you have made it into a smaller ring. Let's check. Always check. Just keep doing it and keep checking. Do it and check, do it and check, do it and check. Okay, we're back to an 8. We still need to go a little bit more. Bring that out. Okay, if anything gets a little wonky and things aren't even anymore, back on the bender press, okay? You can round it right back up again. Okay, we're at about 7 1/4 here. So we need to go just a little bit more. And here we are. A little more yet. And now we're at a size 7. Okay. If you're going to do it on the bender press, you'll only be able to get it so small with a large pin, and that's why we offer several sizes of pins, because you're going to need a smaller pin to get it smaller than an 8. So the ring that we made previously, if you want to make it smaller, you're going to need to use a smaller pin. All right, and essentially is doing the same thing. You need a smaller area. So here's a pin of a smaller size. You need a smaller area, so you're going to size down. If you're using the bender press, you're going to size down by going with a smaller pin. Let's go and show you how that works. Okay, so back over here on the bender press, I sized that ring back up again off camera. So we're back up to about 8 3/4, close to a 9. Remember, large pin, shallow channel. If you don't need to change it a whole lot, you don't need to change your pin. All you need to do is to put your ring into a deeper channel. So if I were to put it in this channel right here, for example, that's deeper. And that allows the ring to get pushed tighter. Remember, round and round. Just keep the ring moving. Okay, now we're back to an 8. Let's say we need to go to the 7, and we're going to do the 7 on here. We're going to change the pin to a smaller pin. We're going to go back to the shallow channel. We're going to start there. Now, make sure your block doesn't come all the way up against here, the wider portion of the pin there. You don't want it to hit that area. You want it to hit the smaller portion, so you have to move your block out. Okay? So let's try, and we'll get this down to a smaller size with a smaller pin. And we'll go swap it around. Actually, go back this way. Now you'll notice if you go ahead and do this, you'll notice that the ring is going to bend much quicker, much faster. And you want to make very deliberate presses. Okay, very slow, deliberate presses. Because if I press too hard, too fast, this is what happens. Gets all out of whack. Okay, again, small presses. So now I got it all out of whack. So I'm going to get that straightened back up again. Now, I've made it too small. Now it won't fit back on that pin again. Okay, no problem. Go back to your steel mandrel. Drive it down the mandrel. Now we're going to fix that wonkiness that we created. We're going to go back to the shallow channel, and I'm going to try and reform that ring straighten it out. Now we're a little off there. Remember what I explained to you earlier is you need to try and rotate the pin either left or right, or excuse me, rotate the ring either left or right, and you can straighten it back up. Another way to straighten it back up again is to push it out to the edge here, just so it's kind of clamped on. You want the ring just kind of clamped down a little on the end there. Then you can use your rubber mallet. I'm just going to move it right here. You can also use your rubber mallet to tap the portion over and line it back up again. Okay. Start with silverware that isn't overly heavy and overly ornate until you get the idea, until you get the concept and a better understanding of the bending process. Using stainless steel flatware, for example, is not a good way to learn. It's the hardest of all of the metals that silverware is made of, generally speaking. And you do yourself a disservice trying to bend stainless steel when you don't understand the process. So always learn on easier materials, like the silver plate, until you understand the process better. Okay? And that is how we make a round ring. Let's talk about spiral wrapped rings. Here's an example of a spiral wrapped ring. Some people also call that a bypass ring. Okay. So what we're going to do for this is we need a longer piece of silverware. And we do have measurements on the ring template for spiral bypass rings. I would like to show you an example of a piece of silverware that really is not the best choice for a bypassed ring when you've got a lot of changes of thickness in the edges here. When you go to wrap it so you have a bypassed area, this area here doesn't lay nice and flat because this area isn't flat. So this isn't really a piece that I would use for a bypassed ring. I would be more interested in using something that's a little smoother. Got a smoother edge to it. Something like one of these. It's not that you can't make a spiral wrapped ring, but you may find yourself to be a little disappointed because it doesn't wrap and it doesn't lay nice and tight. Your coils don't lay tight together. For some people, that's not a problem, and there are no hard and fast rules. So you do what works for you, okay? I'm going to use this piece of silverware here. I love this pattern, and this makes really a very, very pretty spiral wrap. So, okay, spiral wraps. We've got sizing between 4 and 6, 7 and 9, and 10 plus. So I'm going to make this a 10 plus. So I'm going to lay my silverware underneath. I don't need to pound this flat because it's relatively flat to start with. And line up the silverware there with the beginning of the line. Grab my Sharpie marker, and I'm marking where I'm going to do my cutting. Again, my trusty bolt cutter right into the neck, the deep part. I'm going to throw a towel over that. It's super easy. If you don't have bolt cutters, you can use a hacksaw, you can use a jeweler saw, you can use a cutoff saw, a mini band saw, a Dremel cutoff wheel. Bolt cutters, to me personally, they're always my choice. I just find them super easy to do. Okay, we're not going to taper the end of this one like we do with an overlap ring, and we don't want to disturb the decoration down here on the end, so we don't want to flatten that out and make that look ugly. But what we do need to do is to get that nice and smooth. So we're going back to our little mini grinder. Get that all nice and smooth so there's no sharp edge. Super easy to do. Okay, we're going to go back over to the bender, and we're going to wrap a spiral ring. Okay, we're again starting largest pin, most shallow channel. Instead of coming in straight, you're going to come in at an angle. The larger the angle, the more open your spiral will be. You want a tight spiral, then you only need a short angle. Okay, doesn't matter if you go left or right. Now, just a small press. Remember, don't start on the end. Start back from the end. Little presses, little presses. I keep pulling back towards myself till I get my first candy cane shape. Now you can see how it's going to wrap. Okay, it's not straight. You don't want it straight. Candy cane shape. Okay, same thing on the opposite end. Now, if you tipped it to the left, you want to tip it to the left again. Don't swap sides. Don't start tipping it this way. Okay, you want to angle it a little bit again, so your tail here is coming to the left. Again, small presses. slip, 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 slip. If it's slipping too much, just push it further than you would normally push it. Give it a tiny press, then go back to where it was slipping and press again. Okay, so if it just keeps slipping on you, keep slipping on you. Push it further than you would, tiny press, then back to the area you need to press where it was slipping and press again. Okay, candy cane, both ends. Now you can look and see. You can see how that's going to end up bypassing itself. Let's go back now to the center. And this time we want it straight, okay? We don't want to turn it. We've already done our bypassing by going this way, this direction, and this way, this direction. We don't need to do that at this point. We don't need to turn that at an angle. Okay, we're going to go to the center, small press. Then we're going to go to opposite sides, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now I'm going to skew this purposely to show you what to do. If you press and now, oh dear, now it's getting really, really wide there. That's not what I wanted. Go the opposite direction, press again, and you can see how it comes right back towards the center. Okay, line it back up to the center again and press. All right, let's say it's getting too tight in there. We need to open that up. Opposite side, press, and it will open it up further. And if you make small, deliberate presses, you can guide it a lot easier than if you just go whole hog at it and try to get it done all at one time. Small, gentle presses. Always check for round. Now it actually looks really good. Nice round ring. And let's make sure I've got that tightened up. Nice and tight. So I said I wanted to make this into a 10. So it's not going to be a 10 at this point because I pressed it quite a bit. But it will be when we open it up by tapping it down the ring mandrel. So let's check. So right now it's an 8, okay? When you make the ring larger, you're going to have less of a bypass than when you make the ring smaller. So the smaller the ring, the more wrap you have, the more area that overlaps each other. Okay, so I'm going to put that on my steel mandrel, and I'm going to tap that down. Okay, I'm going to tap that down with my pipe. Okay, so now we have a size 10 ring. All right, let's say I want to just tighten that up a little bit. So just a little bit of a gap, and you know, maybe I just don't like that little bit of a gap. Here's a little trick for you. Put that there near the end. Bring your block out. Put it near the end so the pin is holding it in place. Then you can tap with your mallet as well. And that will help to tighten up your gap as well. Okay. Sizing is going to be the same way. Sizing up and sizing down on the spiral ring is going to be the same as it is with an overlap ring. I have this little guy left over from doing our spiral ring, and we're going to do a real quick ring with this little guy too. So we're going to clean that end to start with and remove the sharpness. We can flatten it out here. We can also flatten it out on the bender. Okay. I'm going to also smooth these edges because I don't want them sharp. But my design, I'm going to push these tines together closer. No reason other than it's the design. I like to say there are no hard and fast rules. A lot of it is personal preference. Once you learn the techniques, a lot of it beyond that is just personal preference, what you like, what your customers like. There we go, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to make just a little guy out of this one. Even though this is short, a still large pin, shallow channel. Let me measure that real quick for you. This is only 2.5 inches long. Same way. Candy cane ends. Not going to be able to make your candy cane ends as pronounced just because the ring isn't that long. The ring size is going to be much smaller. Check for roundness. You'll find when you're doing forks that this can be the toughest area to bend here, this flat heel area where the tines come together with the handle. That heel can be difficult to round. It's just something to keep in mind. It's not you. Super cute, really simple, nice way to use an entire piece of silverware. Without waste. Okay, this is a double wrapped ring, or we also call this a saddle ring. And what it is, this is a demi-tasse spoon, which means it's a very, very tiny little delicate spoon. It usually ranges from, depends on the silverware maker or manufacturer, can range from about 3 3/4 inches to 4 1/4 inches. That's about what you're going to be looking for. Something to keep in mind, the longer the piece of silverware is, the more it's going to wrap, okay? These are best suited for larger fingers, something like a pointer or a middle finger ring. And the reason I say that is because if you make that too small, then your decorative end is going to end up clear back here instead of across the bowl of the spoon. So you're not going to be able to see everything. You know, it'll end up looking something like that, you know, where this is clear over here and then you don't see the bowl at all. I think these make nice rings to wear like is on the side of your finger. But we're going to do them one of those next. I got all kinds of choices here. All kinds of choices here. You can do them out of forks too. But we're going to start here with the spoon. So I'm going to pick one out that I think would make a nice double wrapped or saddle ring. What we need to do is we need to flatten this bowl out. You can do it on your anvil by hitting the back of the spoon bowl. starting at the narrow end and then working your way up. Don't try and hit it right here from the start. It just makes it much more difficult. The bender has a flattener built in, so we can do it that way as well, and that's the way I'm going to show you. So we're back here at the bender press. We have a built-in flattener on the ram bar, and I am protecting the silverware with a rubber block. Rubber block does come with a 3D V2, and if you bought a classic kit, you can always add a rubber block on from the store. Same thing, you want to start at the end. It makes flattening a spoon bowl a lot easier than trying to flatten it on the wide end. Okay. Now you got some bubbles in there. That's okay. They're going to go away when we do the bending. So now that we've got that flat, I'm going to set the bender up, and I'm going to show you how to do that double wrap ring. All right, here we are back here at the bender. Large pin, shallow channel. It's pretty much my rule, always. Large pin, shallow channel. Okay, we're working on the back side. And when we do the bending of the bowl, you'll see how easily those bubbles come out. Now again, don't honk down on it. Slow, deliberate presses. Presses are going to be a lot easier on a bowl. So use a lighter hand than you used on a heavier handle. Okay, we're doing the same thing. Candy cane ends. Okay. You can already see that that bowl has smoothed out quite a bit. All right, I don't want my candy canes to be quite as pronounced when I do a double wrap ring. So I don't need that to turn quite as high. All right, we'll go to the other side. Demi-tasse spoons are much lighter weight, so you want to be very careful with your presses. And just go slow. Okay, there's no rush. Another thing is, because they're lighter weight, they're also more prone to breaking, especially when you have a lot of decorative pattern. So again, just take it slow and easy. All right, so it's about looking like that. Now we're going to go towards the center. Again, you want everything straight. You want it to be perpendicular to your pin. Again, rock back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. What we're going to do here is we want the bowl to slide up underneath the decorative end. And just keep going. It's a lot more length to work with than your average ring. So again, I just can't emphasize enough, especially when you're learning, to take things slow and easy. Okay, you can see now that the bowl is starting to wrap around the pin. Okay. So you're just going to keep turning, 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 turning. Round and round and round. I find that it takes more shaping to do one of these than it does one of the other rings. And really just because it's a lot longer. Working with a much longer piece. Again, just as I explained with other rings, if things are not coming up even, like this is skewed over, not in the center, it's just a matter of rotating your ring one direction or the other till you figure out where the inconsistency is. Okay, now I'm going to go into a larger channel here. I got a lot more ring to work with here. Okay. Just keep working it. All right, something that you can keep in mind here is you can also work with your mallet and do some coaxing of it. Just all of your tools are just that. They're tools to help you achieve a successful project. So just because I do something one way doesn't make it the absolute perfect way to do things. You may find, after doing this for a length of time, you may find ways that are easier for you, or better for you, or more comfortable for you. Now here is the exact thing that I was just telling you about. Unfortunately, we broke. You know, it happens. It happens. You were looking at silverware that can be 100, 150 years old, and it can break. So we're just going to use a different spoon. But, you know, this is one of those little accidents that's great to show on camera, to show that even somebody like myself who has years of experience, we can still have mishaps. I don't find mishaps to be too discouraging because they're learning experiences and they help you in the future. So I'm just going to move to a different spoon. You can use those pieces for something else. Large pin, shallow channel. Seasoned artists in any craft or form of art have mistakes or errors or things that just don't work out. And I really don't mind when things like that happen. Not unless I've put hours and hours into something. And that's because they're learning experiences. And they teach you something. At least they should teach you something. Again, we're doing the same thing that we did before. We're just going round and round. We're going to get that bowl wrapped up there nice and tight. It's that bowl right now. See, we're starting to get that bowl nice and tight. And we're going to come around and tighten up further. And you can see how well that has started to wrap. Okay, we're a little bit off here. That's all right. Sometimes you don't have room to turn one. You don't have room to rotate. It's all right. That's what your rubber mallet's for. Pretty much off right there, okay? It's all right. We're going to fix it. You don't have to go all in one direction. You can switch directions as you choose. Whatever you need to do to get it to be comfortable for you. Check for roundness. Looks pretty good. Got a little bit of an area right here that's not quite right. Just going to press that area. Remember, you're pressing whatever you want to fix needs to be underneath your pin. And you can see that this tip is turned up a little bit. I'm going to flatten that down. Put it underneath the pin. Good hard press. Okay, looks good. I would recommend, if you're going to do these double wrapped or saddle rings, that you want to get your polishing done prior to doing your bending, just because you're not going to be able to polish that bowl up underneath. You can always throw this into the tumbler, but still you're not going to be able to get underneath there. And it probably isn't going to be a problem for the most part, but if you need to change this ring size at any point, you're going to move. This part here is going to move and may expose some of the area that you weren't able to reach prior. And then, you know, you're going to end up having to polish it again. So I do recommend doing those, polishing those ahead of time. Oops. Just want to straighten that up a little bit. Okay, let's see what we have for size. We have a 9. I wear a 10 on this finger here. So these are really lightweight. You may be able to just pull it down and give it enough of a stretch. If not, you know, use your mallet. There we go. I think these rings look really nice on the side of your finger. Again, if you make this small, that's going to wrap way down in there. And I think it just looks really nice like this. And that is a double wrapped, or also called a saddle ring. This is what we call a butt end ring, and that is just simply that the two ends butt up together. Okay, so you say you have a customer that wants a ring that's exactly a 7. They don't want to overlap. They don't want a saddle ring. They don't want a spiral or a bypass ring. They want something just super clean and simple. And so we're going to do one of these. And we're going to measure with our ring template. All right, this will make a nice butt end ring. Got a nice flush end right there. So I'm going to do that. So it's determined. We do not have to add to our measurements and move up 4 sizes, because what we're doing is we're going to make a ring a particular size. So I want to use some of this decoration. So I want to make this ring probably longer than I would make most rings, just because I want to see some of that decoration on the end there. So let's do, well, I really hate to make it like a 13. If I made it a 10, I'd have a little bit. So just for an example, we'll make it a 12. How's that? Okay, so I'm going to flatten that out and make it a little easier for me. do the measure and mark. So I'm going to start out, lay that up underneath, line that up with the beginning of the line at size 12. And we're going to mark here. Now we need to add the thickness, so we have to determine which slot works the best for us at the thickest part. Now see, it doesn't go all the way in there. We want it to go in because we're cutting up in here. We're not cutting here. If we were cutting up in here, we probably would choose that slot, but we're going to choose the 3 millimeter. So I'm going to add 3 millimeters to where I left that mark. And that's going to put me right about in there. Probably want to add just a hair more because you are going to be grinding that area and making it smooth. And if you take off too material, then you aren't going to have a piece that's long enough. Trusty bolt cutters right in the neck. Cover with a towel. Now we have a ring shank. Again, we're going to use a mini grinder. Since this end is flat, I'm going to leave this end more on the flat side rather than rounded because I think it will look nice. Okay. Back over to the bender. You're going to do the same things that we talked about earlier. Remember, don't start right at the tip. Leave some room there. Small press. We are going to do our candy cane shapes. A little bit more. Decorative end. Small presses. If you're working on a piece and you've got a really heavy end and you're having a lot of difficulty getting it to turn, to press, first thing I would recommend is to put a long handle on your arbor press, and the second is your trusty mallet can really help out when it comes to moving things. Okay. So there we have our C shape. Now we're just going to bring those ends together. Remember, small presses. Check for roundness. That looks just about perfect. If something pops up, that pops up, you need it to go back down. There's your mallet. Okay, looks pretty nice there. That's great. Nice, super simple piece. Nice piece for a man there. All right, so we've got our ring and it looks really nice and round. And then we put it on our mandrel and we find, well, maybe it isn't quite as round as we thought it was. Now it's kind of more oval, all right? See, there's a nice big gap there, but there's no gap there. We can fix that on the ring mandrel cradle as well. We don't have to move it down because we're not trying to make it bigger. We want it to be, snug up against here. Then we're going to tap it. And our goal is to make it rounder, not oval. And there she is, all rounded up. Make a really nice, simple man's ring.